the big storylines coming out of today in the SEC are that the 9-game proposal was on the table. Some agreed, some disagreed based off of rivalries with other P4 schools. Brian Kelly was very vocal today and said that he was for the 9 games along with playing the Big Ten. The one thing that it seemed like everybody was in favor for is that the SEC and Big Ten will meet and do want to play games against one another, so that's great. But Joe, we do need a committee. Like we do need eyeballs on this because it is not like basketball and it's not like baseball of the big 3. You can't go into a tournament type series and win the thing to get in. You can't. By the way, those brackets have 68 and 64 teams. It's a completely different thing. And just throwing this out there, I agree with Brian Kelly today. I don't know if you heard it, Joe, but he says, look, we should have a committee, but we should also go by RPI. Now, I don't know if you saw this, but this was referenced into yesterday. Okay? Yesterday, for an example, the strength of schedule for some of the 12 teams that made the playoff is absolutely a joke. Joe, it is a joke. So I come at Scott Stricklin and what he said today. I understand what he's saying. You shouldn't have to have a committee to see where these teams are stacking up in reference to the schedules that they have. At the same time, I can't take what he's saying seriously because now he can't be on the committee again. So now that he can't be on the committee again, we don't need a committee. No, I do think that you need both. For what it's worth, I do think that college baseball gets it right. They have an RPI ranking system, and they have a committee for selection based off of things that happen. I think that is a way that you have to go here.
So there were a couple of ways that I looked at this, and I agree with you. I think that
don't agree with me. I mean, agree with Brian Kelly for once. I mean, he's the one that came up with it. It's hard for you to do that.
You know that I will never admit that I agree with Brian Kelly, but I agree with what you're saying. That the committee still needs to stay in place because, like, I just don't know what do you replace it with. I understand the premise of having some sort of algorithm.
Yes, remember?
Well, right. Do we completely do away with it and we just go back to the BCS algorithm that was created that we had when there were only 2 teams that were playing for a national championship at the time? People complain about that every week. Every single week, people bitched about that. Every single year, people bitched about that with the final result and who was in the mix. We created the committee in order to remove the cold-bloodedness of the decision-making of an equation, a computer to determine who got in. And we went in the complete opposite direction, letting flawed human beings, who some of which don't know what they're watching or weren't really watching the games and weren't really caught up with it. I agree with that premise that there should be an algorithm. I mean, we got AI. We're this far in. We probably have a lot more advanced decision making from computers that could help sway the decision making of a committee. I think you need both. We've had enough experiences with both sides to know the positives and the negatives. But the one thing I will say, as ironic as it is that he served on the committee from 2018 to 2021, I do kind of wonder, what is he not telling us? And what I mean by that,
you think he's saying that like their experience was so dumb, like it was already convoluted. They knew the 4 best teams. Is that what you're saying?
I kind of am reading into this, Blake, as like, are there flaws that he's not openly pointing out? Like, he was very direct and blunt about this. I'd love for him to speak more openly on like, hey, this is why it didn't work while I was there. I think it's easy for him to say, this is not ideal, which was his quote, and then move on. I love the context because giving us the context is how we fix the problem and then we move to better solutions.
Well, let me ask this question. Okay. I mean, a computer would have changed stuff last year if we're just being blunt. SMU would not have been in, Alabama would have been. Like, let's just be blunt about it, right? I mean, like, that's where we would have been. So a person selected SMU over Alabama, and everybody's going to say, well, Blake, the bowl game, Michigan, do whatever you want with that. I don't really care. that Michigan team still beat Ohio State at the end of the year too, the national champion. All I would say here would be this. I see what I know you're trying to go to a deeper meaning of what he's trying to say here. I gotta throw something back at you though. Scott Stricklin has not been a good AD at Florida. He's been horrendous.
That's the only point.
Now he did stand by Ty Golden, and they won a national title in basketball. The whole Napier thing has seemed to. Let's see how that plays out. But there have been some ups and downs and ebbs and flows from him. They wanted Scott Stricklin out with this whole Napier thing went down, and they got blown out by Texas, and he announced that Napier was staying. So let's see what happens there before we just anoint Scott Stricklin. But here's to your point. I want to bring this up to what the overall arching theme of what you're saying. Everyone's coming out with a voice right now saying what they think should happen. And I think that when we see this, we have a situation where people are getting confused based off of people's opinions versus what is the reality of what is actually going to happen and where we're pushing forward to. That's number one. Number two, I also think that we have a massive problem that we just need one centric voice. That, like, you run Lane Kiffin out there, you run everybody out there saying, hey, this is what we've proposed to all of the conferences. Are they going to accept it or are they going to deny it? Because when you have the SEC and Big Ten fighting against each other, they're not going to agree because, Joe, in reference to the 5+11 format, the Big Ten announced that they don't want to do that, and the ADs don't want to do that, and the SEC does because the SEC feels like it's more beneficial to them. Well, the Big Ten says, well, we got 9 conference games. That's not beneficial to us. And Ross Dellinger went on Feinbaum today and said, per his sources, that they don't want to do that. What if you had one centric voice that said, this is what we're doing, this is what we're going to do, and you're going to have to get on board? Everybody's fighting amongst themselves for the betterment of them. And I got to be real with you. I feel that everybody's trying to put pressure on the SEC in this regard for 9 conference games.